This is what we had in 2019. We had a flow rate which was just slightly less than the 216. We had 181 cubic meters per second. So based on our history and based on what we see, we weren't expecting to see the flooding that we've seen downtown.
This from the Director of Protective Services for Huntsville, Steve Hernan, during a review of the flooding that hit the town just a few months ago. Hernan says versus the previous models, this year's flood was a totally different scenario.
Normally the water goes up and it comes down in a 3 to 4 day period. This year the water went up, it dropped down to about 150 cubic meters per second, and it basically stayed there.
And of course that led to extensive damage over weeks throughout Muskoka. Hearing from various community members affected by flooding during the special meeting, Mayor Scott Aitchison said he and council are aware the old ways of dealing with flooding no longer work.
I think I've been heard many times saying that what we have been doing, cleaning up after every flood and just hoping it's not as bad next year, is not a sustainable solution. And we can't keep doing that.
During the meeting, a Port Sydney resident who was displaced by flooding said she was never asked once when calling the town if she was okay at any point. Aitchison took that comment to heart.
I particularly appreciate your comments, and I know we talked about this over the phone, about the municipality's reaction, not just to not really seeming to know what was going on in Port Sydney, but just the simple act of asking if you were okay. And I apologize to you then that that didn't happen, and I will apologize to you again that that's not how it was dealt with, and that kind of thing will never happen again under my watch.
After the meeting, he admitted staff were overwhelmed with calls, but he believes the compassion could have still been part of the equation.
And I just thought to myself, you know, that's the kind of thing that just seems like basic human decency. Are you okay? Is a very simple thing to ask. And, you know, I can see how, you know, in the course of someone's day around here, they get a million calls about a million different things, and that, you know, it's a question, I think, not of how good people are here, but maybe just of training. And, you know, I mean, I felt genuinely bad. I still do. And I just feel like, you know, we can do a better job of making sure that our first instinct is to care about people's personal safety, and that should have been the first question that was asked of Sandy and anybody who called in to express their fears about what was going on.
Aitchison says he's been impressed with the level of support coming from the province during this situation and afterwards.
The province has been very responsive to our calls and to our requests for, you know, discussions on the issue. You know, the government has invested $5 million towards not just the research, but actually developing a plan to, you know, to better manage the system. And so, you know, and I'll say this as well, the Premier seems to have a particular affection for the area, and he's remarkably responsive to me. I called him directly, and he answers his phone, and he wants to know what he can do to help. I mean, so the province is engaged at every level, and I think that you know, now is our opportunity to actually come up with a, you know, with an updated plan and an updated system, and to look at the whole thing, not just you know, not just one little piece here or there, and not just in the context of, you know, making sure, you know, people on Lake Muskoka are protected, but to actually you know, take a more comprehensive look at the whole system.